Hello, dear viewer. You have chose to spend your time with us for some reason. Hopefully we'll make it worth it. We are discussing the best of the decade of the 2010s. I'm going to wing it, but my co-host here, who can introduce himself, is more structured and more prepared, and he's going to be a better host than I am, so I'll let him take the rest of this part.
I'll just say that it's not hard to be more organized and more prepared than not being prepared, so don't expect too much either. But yeah, I'm Thomas, and the movie that we're gonna
No. Say it like the Germans say.
My name is Thomas, and
Thomas. So much better.
I just noticed that it sort of sounds like I don't know if the name exists in like Spanish speaking countries, but it sounds like they would
100%. 100%.
Right? So
Yeah.
it sounds like they would say it like that too, but whatever. So I chose the movie for this episode, which is possibly my one single favorite of the 2010s decade, but it's certainly one of the best of the decade, and that is Chang-dong's Burning, which came out in 2018. It's a Korean film, and it is about an aspiring author. His name is Jong-seo, who meets his childhood neighbor again, Hemi, and when they go out to drink, she tells him that she wants to go visit Africa and asks him to take care of her cat while she's away. So they go to meet her cat, but the cat won't show itself. So they just sort of have sex in her apartment, and then she leaves for Africa. And while she's away, he takes care of the cat, although never sees it, and just sort of knows that it's there because it's using the litter box and eating the food and stuff.
And he has personal time in her apartment. Don't forget that part. It's very important.
Yeah, thanks. I almost didn't say it. Yeah, and once while he is having quality me time in her apartment.
He does it a couple times. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but one of the times she calls and says that she got stuck at the airport in Nairobi, and asks him to pick her up at the airport in Seoul, which he does, and she is in company of Ben, who is another Korean that she met at the airport in Nairobi, and the three of them go out to dinner, and Hemi tells about her time in Africa and how moving it was, and that she just like wanted to disappear while she was there, which Ben just sort of finds amusing, and he starts talking with Jong-seo, and Jong-seo asks him what he does for a living. Ben says he's playing, I think the exact quote.
Yeah, it says in the movie playing, and I think we can cut the synopsis here because it just kind of spirals, and I think that's going to be the bulk.
It's just
our
fair enough.
Conversation is after that point, because that's when the movie starts getting really, really good.
Yes.
And that's like, what, 45 minutes in, and then it starts getting crazy.
Yes, because should I just like do the rest of it quickly? I mean, so we know what's going on. Yeah, because so the three of them meet a few times, and eventually the three of them meet at the farm that Jong-soo works at. It's like his father's farm, and they smoke weed, and Ben admits to having a hobby of burning greenhouses every few months, and then that he wants to burn another one soon. And after that, Hemi disappears, and Jong-soo just sort of has like he starts by asking Ben if he knows where she is, and sort of gets the impression that Ben has killed her, and he just like stalks him and just finds hints here and there that Ben actually like was the one who made her disappear or likely kill her, and in the end decides to kill Ben as a revenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the movie end.
And
I think
movie
everything
ends.
after the as soon as Ben comes in, I think everything after that is up for interpretation.
Actually,
However,
there's parts before that even that are up to interpretation.
that's true too. Yes, and I want to get into that. But before we do that, I want to know, because I was kind of surprised that you said this was your favorite, like, ever. So why did you
Yes.
pick it? Why is it your favorite?
Um,
And then we'll get into the
so
more esoteric stuff.
of course, there's a few reasons. So actually, the reason that I watched this movie in the first place was because it's based on a story by Jesus Christ, I forgot his first name. Haruki Murakami, and I'm a big fan of his, but he has like a very unique style of writing that I thought does not work very well as a movie, or wouldn't work very well as a movie. So I was curious to see how they would like manage to put that on the screen, and they actually did it perfectly. I think they sort of did like portrayed the sober atmosphere that is portrayed by the like very weird way of narrating that he has in his writing. They put in the erotic that he likes to put in it, and it's also like he always makes good use of music. Like in everything that he's written, I think there's like a few scenes where there's like specific music being mentioned and playing for a while, and makes like for special moments in the books themselves. And for example, in the movie, there's just like two pieces of music I think that you can really like make out. One is like sort of an eerie type of music that is played in a few scenes in Paju, where like the farm that Jong-seo lives at is at. And then there's this jazz piece that they play while they're smoking at the farm.
My favorite scene.
It is the best
beautiful
scene. Yeah, it's a beautiful scene. The three of them, they're smoking a joint and listening to jazz, and Hemi just dances topless in the sunset. It's a beautiful scene, and I actually read that they shot this scene over a month every day because they only had such a limited time frame in which the sky looked the way it was supposed to, basically. It's a beautiful scene.
And you hear jazz in Ben's apartment as
beautiful jazz. Also, like Ben is always the one who's connected to jazz. But yeah, so that's fantastic. It's good. It's a good movie adaptation of something that's very hard to adapt, I think. It's very visually pleasing. And what I like most about it, and which is, I think, what we're going to spend most of the episode on, is that so much of it is sort of up to interpretation. Like, I'm a big fan of literature because there's always so many things that are up to interpretation, and you can always take things sort of how you think they work best and how they fit you. And it's just a movie that leaves, like, you can take it the way it seems most obvious and be fine with that.
Right.
Excuse me. But if you want to, you can dive in deeper into it and just find so many theories that also fit the way the movie's laid out. And then there's like little parts everywhere that just fit one of these theories the most, or sort of even like create them in the first place, I guess. But like, I feel like every scene, every little bit of this movie can be used to support one theory or another. And I think that is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a similar experience with The Lighthouse. Like, I saw it the first time, not knowing much about it, and then I saw it the second time and just had a completely different experience. And this is maybe not on that level of like difference between doing 1 and 2, but you know, kind of had a similar experience where it was just pretty different the second time I saw it.
Yeah, definitely. I also have to say that it was like sort of a slow burner. Because, like, after the first time I watched it, I liked it, but I sort of was like, okay, I guess it's sort of up to interpretation whether, like, Hemi just disappeared or she was killed by Ben. But then I sort of looked into it more and saw that, like, the theories are much more complex, and then there's even more. And then watching it a second and third time, found even more and made even more sense of those theories. And it really gets better. Yeah. After the first one.
She 100%. I had the same thing where I wasn't sure the first time, but second time watching, I'm like, yeah, she for sure died. Like, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very skillful because you're supposed to be put in the shoes of Jong-seo, and when you see it a second time, you kind of have that certainty that he has, and you kind of empathize with him on that level, where he's very certain and he's just trying to confirm his, very strong suspicion, and at the same time, you're kind of going through the same process. So that's very well done as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. So watching the movie a second time, I kind of have a bit of a metaphorical take on it.
I think that actually, I think this is sort of something that you can't really avoid. Like, I think a lot of people, when watching it the first time, they just like take things as they are and don't really like see metaphors in it. But there's actually this scene sort of early in the movie where Jong-soo meets Haemi and Ben at Ben's apartment, and they cook pasta, and Ben, I'm not sure in which context exactly, but he brings up the word metaphor, and Haemi asks, "What's a metaphor?" And he just like refers to Jong-soo and says, "I'm sure he can explain it better than I can." It's just like the movie directly and purposely introduces the concept of metaphors. So I think not to view this movie in a metaphorical way is just, I wouldn't call it wrong, but it's far out there.
You're not getting as much out of it as you could be.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't look at it that way. And that's a good pickup. I didn't even think of that. Because, it makes sense in the context of the movie, too, because he's a writer. So,
yeah.
Boom, there you go. Of course you know what a metaphor is. But, yeah, I think it all has to do with that idea of the great hunger. And I think for Jong-soo, he had hunger in the sense of the great hunger, where he didn't have meaning. He's just working odd jobs. He's physically carrying a big sack on his shoulder, like he has a burden on his shoulders, which could be interpreted as his estranged mother and his volatile father, and he has all of that kind of baggage going on. And the course of the movie is somewhat noirish, and then at the same time, it's a coming of age for young Jong-soo, because he's first of all shedding that baggage and coming to terms with it, and that's really a subplot, but he's finding his meaning. And initially he thinks it's through Haemi, where he's like, yes, I'm going to have a life with her and we're going to be in a relationship and it's going to be awesome. And then it slowly starts to shift, where this whole thing becomes, I think, his book that he hasn't really been trying to write, but at the end of it, it shows him typing.
Yeah.
So I think that's through her death and her murder, I guess you want to say, he finds his meaning in life. Now he knows what to write about, and he has kind of more of a direction now. And I take this so far as to say that you see that one shot of him in her apartment typing.
Yeah. I
think everything after that is, I think all of that's not literal. Everything after that is not literal, and it's the ending of the book, and it doesn't really happen.
So you think what happens before that scene is real, but also he puts that into the book, and everything after it is fictional?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're watching.
Okay, because otherwise I would have disagreed, but yeah.
Yeah. So everything before that is like it literally happened, and it's his interpretation of what happened in his book. You're like basically from the beginning to that. Well, the whole movie is just what the book is. And then after you see they have that really great zoom out where he's in the apartment and they show with the cityscape behind him and he kills Ben after that, that's all like the last chapter of the book, and it didn't really happen, I think. That's my interpretation of it anyway.
Okay. I think it's a theory that I also like sort of thought about, at least that it's just the story that he's writing, but I didn't actually go as far into it as you did. Also, I didn't really think of it like as a coming of age, but it actually makes sense the more I think of it, because also like in the beginning when he takes over his father's farm, he like still works on it and takes care of the cow and everything, and then toward the end he sells the cow and moves to Haemi's apartment to write. He covers his mother's debt, sort of to, I think,
or at least offers to. We don't know if he really does,
true.
But he offers to.
I think it's likely, I guess, that he didn't, and that he probably just used the money to get the apartment, and but like the money that he got from the cow. But that he sort of like makes peace with his inner demon, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, I more so took the whole scene with his mom as, okay, he's going through all these, he's having a lot of different experiences happen to him, and he's, you know, met this person that he loves, and he's kind of dealing. I want to get into what Ben represents, because I think he represents something very specific. But he's going through this coming of age process, and now he's at the point where he's not a teenager anymore. He's not a child, and there's a lot of allusions to childhood and what he might or might have not done. And he tries to figure that out too, and tries to sort out his past in that way. But now he's a man, and he is capable of taking care of his parents, which is a typical coming of age thing that everyone goes through, that you should mature enough to not only be independent, but be so independent and steady and strong that one day you'll be able to take care of your parents. So I think that little scene was just alluding to that. Maybe I could be reaching there, but that's how I took that anyway.
I think it makes sense. Although I also think that the scene with his mother is very interesting for another reason, and it's actually like one of the things that I have not found multiple ways to interpret, sort of, because Amy mentions that when she was a child, she fell into this well, and she was like crying there because nobody was like hearing her shout for help or whatever. And then eventually Jong-seo finds her, and she's rescued, but Jong-seo doesn't remember, so he goes around asking whether this well actually existed or not, and everybody says it didn't except for his mother in that scene. And I think I always thought that's sort of weird, and it's like, I mean, in general, the well is like a weird thing, I'd say. And I think I wrote down 3 possible meanings for it. And like one is that it's sort of, because in Korean movies, it's quite common that they sort of discuss the issues of social status. And in this movie also, like Haemi and Jong-soo and their respective families, they're very working class, while Ben is upper class. He's rich and everything. So there's definitely like this, contrast there. And the well could represent like the pit of the working class trying to reach up to the upper class. Or it could be like her being stuck or helpless and waiting for a rescue from Jong-soo. And this is
right, sorry, go for it.
Okay, and then the last thing, which is I think the only one that, from the way I see it, the only one that the mother saying that it did exist really fits into, is that the question whether the well is there or not sort of represents the questioning of whether Haemi was killed or not, or whether she was not killed, whatever, like her fate essentially. And that like sort of everyone you ask sort of has a different opinion, or like in general the opinions might differ, and that there's some who say she was killed and some say she wasn't, and that it just sort of represents that.
I like that second interpretation, because it goes back to the line Ben said where he said to Jong-soo, like, you're the only one she trusted in the whole world, like you were her only friend. So that, I think that ties back to that second interpretation. I like that one the best. I think that one fits the best of all 3.
I think I might like the third one better, because I think actually the line that you just mentioned that Ben said fits into another theory that I really like. I'm not saying that it's the one I'd go with most likely, but it's definitely my favorite one, and I'm not sure if that's also the one that you had hinted at before, because it's about what Ben represents.
Right. So do you want to get into that?
I want to see if it's the one that you mean, so I'm just gonna get into it. And so the theory is that Ben is actually the Grim Reaper. Okay, so it's not yours.
Okay.
Great. So
no,
it's quite common that the Grim Reaper is represented riding a black horse, and Ben drives a black Porsche, whose symbol is a horse, which happens also to be black. Um, and when he admits to Jong-seo that he burns down greenhouses, Jong-seo asks him how he chooses which greenhouses deserve to be burned down. And Ben says he doesn't. He just accepts them. Like the rain doesn't decide what it's gonna hit. It's just like it just accepts what it is sort of meant to hit. So it's sort of been decided that Hemi is going to die, and he just like does the deed, sort of like the Grim Reaper would.
Right.
And
I think Jong-soo knows that at the time, because his line immediately, which if you looked at just the script, you'd be like, what the hell is he talking about? But it makes sense. He's like, I love Jaime very much. Like, he just says that, and he's like kind of breaking down.
yeah,
And it's kind of out of nowhere with the first time you see it. And then now, once you kind of know what's coming, it makes more sense. Like, okay, he knows what burning greenhouses really means.
yeah, I think so too. And also, like, the laughing, there's also like, it's also up to interpretation what that means. But like in this theory, you could just interpret that Ben, of course, well, in general, you can interpret it as Ben knowing what's going to happen to him, and he just like sort of laughing at the irony and at the pity of Jong-soo, essentially. And basically, what in this theory would have happened is that Hemi went to Africa and either chose to die when she like saw this beautiful sunset, and she just said that she wanted to disappear. Like in that moment, she just sort of decided to die, or that maybe she was actually like killed. Maybe like at the bombing at the airport that she said made her stuck there. And that she sort of like was stuck in between life and death, because you know there's often this sort of not having unfinished business, so you can't really transcend into the afterlife or whatever. And that sort of her unfinished business was like spending time with her only friend, so that she went back, but accompanied by the Grim Reaper Ben, and spent time with Jong-soo. But then when he called her a whore after like she danced topless in front of them, she just like sort of her last connection to the world just sort of was severed, because she lost her only friend, and that's when the Grim Reaper took her away.
Wow,
And
I
that's
like that.
theory.
I did not think anything close to that, but I like it.
I'm not saying it's the one I'd go with, but I like it a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I would certainly want to watch it again with that in mind. I think that would totally change the viewing experience.
Yeah. But now you could go into your theory.
Okay, so I'm going back to the coming of age thing, and I think Ben is more. I think he alluded to it a little bit. Ben kind of more represents the societal ideal, because he's wealthy, he drives a nice car, he has a nice apartment, he has a new woman every week, it seems, or month, or however.
Every 2 to 3 months.
Every 2 to 3 months, right? He does what he wants. He cooks. I mean, he does like everything. Like, he's just kind of, he's the ideal that, that's what you should aspire. Like I'm assuming South Korean society, it's like that's the pinnacle of humanity right now, or that's what the pinnacle of humanity is Ben. That's like the top of the line. So I think he represents that, and it's more of a reckoning with Jong-soo as a young man and finding his place, the great hunker, finding his place in the world, and contending with what society wants him to be and what he wants to be, and I guess what his parents are, and not trying to be like them. So he's trying to find his place, and he's trying to reckon, okay, I need to be part of society. How much of society do I emulate and still keep my own unique version of humanity? And that's symbolically represented at the end, where he kills the ideal of what society is, and physically sheds his clothes. So he's dropping, he's shedding off parts of himself, metaphorically, that don't serve him anymore, and he's burning it. And he's becoming a new person, like a baby. He's being born again. So that's kind of more where I'm coming at it from.
Interesting. That's also like a theory that I didn't know at all, actually. And
I don't know, I just made it up, so I don't know.
fair enough. I just remembered like the scene where Ben says that, like, when he was asked what he does for a living and he just says he plays. I was just like trying to fit that into your theory, because I think like there's one interpretation which I'm going to get into a little bit, and then I think there's sort of the interpretation of that being like sort of a way to block, like, to say you're lower class, you can't get where I am anyway. To sort
Right.
of, yeah. But I also think that
I
it's
mean,
like,
it was definitely condescending when he said
oh
it.
yeah,
Like,
for
it was a
sure, for
condescending
sure.
comment. Yeah.
But I guess you could also like see it as, being like leaving someone to figure out their life and to grow up on their own, because it is like growing up is a process that you're like sort of prepared for, but you're not accompanied in. So it's like Jong-seo was like at the point, because like he was done with his military service, and so he was at a point where he was like supposed to grow up on his own now, and that Ben was like sort of saying that to him in a way.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I still think the playing comment fits in with my theory, where it's just like, you have the image of like a hedge. Okay, let's say the pinnacle of society is like a hedge fund manager. What the hell does a hedge fund manager do? Who the hell knows? Like, it's so complicated, and like, I feel like that's a common kind of trope in a lot of different types of media, where it's like, yeah, this guy's like, at the top of the line. He's like has all the money he wants, and has all the women he wants, and nice cars and all that stuff, and he just like does something. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Like
maybe he's
sort
part
of
of the
like
mob.
the
Who
Great
knows?
Gatsby, sort of. Yeah,
Yeah, which they allude to as well.
yeah,
Yeah, like what the hell does the Great Gatsby do? He parties. That's it. What's his job? Who knows?
yeah. I think like in general that statement fits into him very a lot, a lot.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know why we sort of getting to this. Don't want to say last, but I guess not first. But like, so the most common theory is just that Ben is a serial killer and he killed Hayami, right?
That's no fun though.
I mean, it is no fun, but I still want to go over it because there's like so much that fits it. But it's also the reason why it's not like the main theory is because sort of everything can have another explanation. But
Yeah, you can fit that in, and I think I will give that theory credit. I think the one part that I do buy into about that theory is the meaning of what burning greenhouses is. It's just like he kills someone, and he throws his body in their greenhouse, and he lights it on fire, and that's his way of.
well,
Like, getting
I'm
rid
not
of the
even
corpse.
sure
That's
if
what I
like
think.
there's an actual greenhouse involved. I think it's sort of
Yeah,
the women he kills is the greenhouse, are the greenhouses.
right.
Because
But I mean, if you wanted to take it literally, then I would think that would be your train of thought there.
well, I don't know, because like I think if he had actually thrown it into a greenhouse, then he would have noticed, right, Jong-soo. So I think he just
Yeah,
like
that's true.
kills the women and then burns them, and the women, they represent the greenhouses, because like greenhouses grow plants and women grow life.
Yeah, true.
And I think that I'm not sure if that's like if that sounds wrong, but like in a way,
No, it does.
yeah,
Like
okay,
the whole Mother Nature thing. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I get that. I get that.
But yeah, so I'll
And
just,
I think the well turned just quickly before we get into the other theory, but
Yeah.
I think that's part of where the well comes in, where it's like symbolically and kind of literally, he's trying to think, if I can find this well, I can find the body. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's
oh
where
yeah,
he
okay,
kept the body.
okay, that's also a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
but also it's reckoning with the past and like, okay, what did I and didn't I do, and taking inventory and doing all that kind of stuff. Like that still fits in too, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
looking for any lead he can.
True. Okay, but yeah, like, so there's so much that fits the killer theory, so I want to go over those things. So first of all, like, Ben, the way he behaves and sort of the traits that he has, they fit, like, sort of the scheme of a psychopath and a serial killer a lot. Like, for one thing, serial killers tend to have, like, I don't know how you call it, like a specific type of person that they tend to kill, you know? Like Jack the Ripper always killed prostitutes, you know? And
Right.
Ben always, or like he always dates lower class girls, and those are the ones he killed. Like Hayami, she was like working in an advertisement company, I guess, and then the girlfriend that Ben has toward the end of the movie, she's like a cashier at a beauty store, I think. So like he has, you know, his sort of group of targets, I guess. And he always just uses them for entertainment first, you know. He entertains his friends and himself with them, and then when he gets bored of them, he kills them. And also, like,
Right.
his group of friends could just be... Because, like, there's always this scene where he's with his current girlfriend and his group of friends, and then he yawns. And that could be, for one thing, seen as him being bored of the girl and killing them after. Or also, like, him being bored of social gatherings and social situations and only using his friend group as, like, a cover for, like, seeming normal, essentially.
Which would go into him being like a psychopath.
Yeah, exactly. He has a rhythm, I guess. So, like, I think serial killers, like, they tend to, you know, kill every month, every year, every whatever. And Ben burns greenhouses, quote unquote, every 2 to 3 months. So that would make sense. Serial killers tend to take souvenirs a lot of the time, and he just like has a bunch of, I don't know, women's jewelry and the watch and whatever in his drawer in his bathroom. But like also that could just be stuff that like the girls forgot at his apartment. So that's like a lot of people say like, oh yeah, his watch was in his apartment, so obviously he killed Hayami and just kept the watch as a souvenir, but like she could have just forgotten it there. And also like there's the cat that he has after Hayami disappears, and when it runs away and Jong-seo calls it with Boyle, it comes to him, so he assumes it's Hayami's cat. But I'm like, okay, we know Jong-seo has never seen the actual cat that Hayami had, and for everyone that has a cat, they know that they don't tend to listen to their name, especially.
Right.
I don't think that the cat would after it had never like after it had after it had always refused to show itself to Jong-soo when he was feeding it.
Yeah.
So I'm
That
not.
was not a very shy cat. In that
Yeah,
argument.
like if it came to you just because he said something, that doesn't mean anything to me. So I wouldn't base it on the cat either. Then Ben has quite the god complex. Like in the scene, like after Jong-soo picks them up at the airport and they drive to this restaurant, Ben is in the backseat and he's like having like on a phone call. First of all, which I think is sort of weird, but I'm not sure what to make of it, is that in the end, I think you hear that it was a phone call with his mother. And like during the phone call, when I watched it for the first time, I was like, it was not a phone call that you would think was to his mother. Like he talks like he was talking to his best friend or something. I don't know. But
right.
he also
yeah,
like
it was a little ambiguous until he said.
Yeah.
I guess he said something to the effect that he was talking to his mom or something.
Yes,
like that.
exactly. But there's also like I think he says something like, "Yeah, I didn't get sick. It's the good genes" or something. Sort of like him being a superior human just by nature, sort of. And then in the scene where they make pasta, he says like, you know how they make offerings to their gods, I make the offerings to myself, sort of like comparing himself to a god directly. And then of course there's this scene where he admits to burning greenhouses, and Jong-soo asks, what if you ever get caught? And he's like, I'm not gonna get caught. And
Right.
There's since later when Haemi disappears, there's like quite a few scenes where Jong-soo stalks Ben, and there's the scene where he watches him in the gym, and we see that Ben notices Jong-soo. So it is likely
Right.
that in all the other scenes he did also, and he just played with him, like when he was racing through traffic, or when he met them in the cafe, he was just playing with Jong-soo because that's what he likes to do. And also at the end, when Jong-soo asked him to meet them out there in the field, and he just like went there, probably knowing, in this theory he would have, that Haemi was gone or dead. He still wanted to meet him, even though he said he was going to come with Haemi. And then he was like surprised to be killed by him. It's just because he was like never under the assumption that Jong-soo would figure it out and kill him, because he was thinking he was invincible, basically.
Right. Right. Well, that goes into my theory, don't you think?
It also does, yes. Then, blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah. Also, I think this scene, a lot of people just made so much of this moment, and it's absolutely brilliant. And the scene where Jong-soo stabs Ben, and he hugs him, and the expression on his face, it says so much, because like it's in such pain, but it's also like not only pain, I'd say. He's also just like sort of overwhelmed with lots of emotions. Like he's surprised and sort of happy, even in some ways, I'd say, or it looks like it at least. Because I think that's like sort of the first moment where he actually felt something. Like in the rest of the movie, he says how he's like, he has never cried, or he's never jealous. Like he doesn't really have
until that
emotion.
one scene, which is
Yes,
also really good.
exactly. Yeah. So it's like he can only feel, like in general, he can probably only feel emotion through pain, and that's why he kills people. But then like his first real emotion was like when he was being killed. But
right, or he can only feel it in extreme circumstances, like killing someone. That's a very extreme act to engage in, and it's just, that's the only way that he can get that, like he was saying, he can get his heartbeat to tick up a little bit.
Exactly. But also, I suppose it could just be like feeling sorry for Jong-soo a little bit, I guess. Like if you would go away from the killer theory, like you could probably interpret that face lots of ways also. But my favorite piece, I think this is one of the favorite things in the movie for me, and it's also like the thing that fits basically only it fits the killer theory and the Grim Reaper theory best, and it's the scene where he applies makeup to his new girlfriend toward the end of the movie.
Yes, tell the viewers of this makeup.
I love it so much, because when I watched the movie for the first time, I kept going back to that scene in my head because I didn't know what to make of it. And when I just like was researching the movie online after, I don't know if it was before or after watching it the second time, I ran across something that I found very interesting. And it happens to be that in Korean there is a word which I'm gonna butcher, but I'm gonna try anyway, and it is hwajang, I think. And this word can mean both cremation and makeup. So, of course, if you don't speak Korean and you watch this movie, you don't really see it. But I suppose when you know Korean and watch this movie, you immediately see it as a metaphor for someone being cremated, for someone being burned. And it's just like the fact that Ben applies this makeup to her, and that she's not really just happy in that scene. She's like sort of sad, almost crying, and forcing herself to smile, which I think is pretty interesting too. Really makes me believe that it is an actual metaphor for the act of cremation, or I guess in this case.
Or he's preparing her because she's the next victim, or
yeah, that's also like because he has a god complex and he prepares his offerings to himself, sort of.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, that makes sense.
It's
I thought you pronouncing that Korean word was going to be cringy, but it wasn't. You did a good job.
Well, thank you.
I was
I mean, we've
scared. I
been
was like,
trying to
oh,
pronounce Korean names this entire episode. We probably butchered them as well.
yeah, because I'm an ignorant American. Of course, I'm butchering it. That's what I do.
True.
Oh
Yeah.
God, I can't even say your name right. Oh,
Yeah. You
okay.
damn monolinguist. Whatever.
That's me. Oh,
Oh. And there's another
okay.
theory that I also quite like, but for example, the makeup scene, I don't. It sort of fits into it, I guess, in a different way. Um, and that is actually that Haimi was not actually killed, but that Ben is actually a sex trafficker, and that Haimi was sold to China. And for one thing, sort of the hints for that is an allusion to the cow. So the cow is a girl, the one that Jong-seo sells, and he
Yeah, they specifically say that in the
yeah,
movie.
and it's sort of like forcefully pushed onto this what do you call it? The thing
Like a trolley or trailer
a
hitch,
trailer,
whatever.
yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Onto this trailer, and it's like sold away, and I think it like even sort of turns around and looks at Jong-soo in goodbye, and it could be like sort of a metaphor for Haimi being sold away.
Hmm.
And then after that, even there's like in the scene where Jong-soo is with Ben and his friends and his new girlfriend, she talks about China all the time and how they treat their women.
Hmm.
And that would make sense. Like that could also be an allusion to that. And it would explain why Ben is so rich without seeming to have an actual job, because he's selling
Hmm.
people. And it's actually apparently a real issue in Korea. Like it's actually not that uncommon. I think in general it's much more common than people think. But like specifically women in South Korea being sold into China is actually quite common, I think. Or so I've read.
No, I get that. I think that makes sense in a certain way. I mean, if you want to go with the whole, okay, it's not really her cat. He really did have a stray cat, and women just lose things at his apartment. If you want to go with that, then it makes sense.
Yeah. Plus also like the jewelry that he keeps in his apartment, and like the makeup, it could also mean that he's like sort of preparing them for the sale, so they look their best
Mm.
when they're sold, sort of. And because the watch was looking so cheap, as it's mentioned in the like when she puts it on first, she says like, "Oh, it looks so cheap," so they took it
Right.
off, and then give her something that makes her look more expensive, quote unquote. So she's more
Exactly.
interesting.
Yeah.
So I think that's
I think
also like
that
a,
one
a
leans more
theory
on
that
the
works.
the literal side, though.
Yeah, I think so too.
So it's a little less interesting to me. I like the more
Yeah,
metaphorical kind of
because also it doesn't
view
really
of it.
fit into like the concept of burning greenhouses. I'm not sure how those two things would fit together. So yeah,
I mean, unless burning a greenhouse.
I,
Yeah, I don't really see how that would be
yeah, me
translated
me
to
neither. But
trafficking.
I still think it's like an interesting theory.
Mhm.
But that's not like sort of what I mean, that like even the scene with the cow can be, or the conversation that or I guess the story that Ben's new girlfriend tells in the friend group, that they all can be made into parts of a theory on how to solve this movie, and that's what I love about it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just so many different layers. Like there's like it's kind of noirish too, because like they're smoking all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
and Jung-soo uses like MacGyver tactics to not MacGyver, but you know what I mean. He just uses like different tactics to find information and clues and whatnot.
true.
Like getting into the apartment and having the old landlord lady get him in and all that stuff. It's very noirish, very noirish.
Yeah. Plus, I think like most of the scenes in the movie are like made at dawn or at dusk, Wait, are dawn and dusk the same thing? At sunset and like toward the evening and night. So like
Dawn and dusk are different.
okay, so dawn
Yeah,
is in the morning and dusk is in the evening, right?
that's correct.
Okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
most scenes are
So
dusk, evening, and night.
yes, that's true. Well, I mean, it gives it a good um,
A good eerie
kind of
feeling too.
aesthetic.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, especially, and I liked how they. The feeling I got when I read the short story was it was the narrator or the main character was like a middle-aged man,
yeah.
and
That's
then they
true.
made him really, really young in this.
That's true. I think like
Pretty
I think he was
interesting.
even married and everything. I think it's like
Yeah,
sort of interesting because like uh it sort of takes away the issue of social status a bit in that movie because
hmm
in the story Ben, I think that's probably not his name in the story, but Ben and the main character are sort of like on the same in the same sort of social class.
yeah, or maybe Ben's a little bit more, but at the same like
Yeah,
the. I mean, I think yeah, I think you're right. The social class issue is a little bit toned down in the movie because it's like he's a kid basically. Of course, he's not going to be like super rich. That's what makes Ben so
well yeah, but also I mean like
intriguing. Is he's
he's
so
the
young
son
and
of
he's
a
so
farmer,
rich.
so like
Right.
I guess like even by becoming or by trying to become a writer, he's like sort of trying to break out of that social class, you know?
And I think that's what he does by the end of it. I think
Yeah, I
that's what
think
that
so too.
whole symbolically what that whole killing is he
And like the giving up of his
conquered.
family home.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
he gave that up. Yeah, and he conquered society's ideal and he killed it, and he's gonna make it in his own image now. I guess that's a little bit of a god complex. And like I was telling you, he took off all his clothes. He's being born anew, and now he can scale the social ranks, if you will.
Yeah.
And now he's just as good as Ben is, or will be. Like he. And I think you see that theme throughout the movie where he's kind of underestimated a couple times, but at the same time he knows that he has the potential to be what Ben is,
Yeah.
given enough time. Like his
Yeah.
mom underestimates him, Ben underestimates him. I don't know if anyone else does, but those two scenes stand out where his mom's like, "Oh, you can't pay that day. That what are you doing?"
That's true, yeah. Yeah.
And Ben's always condescending, but that's, there's
But
other reasons for that too,
I think it's
probably.
also like interesting that I think when they first met, Ben asks what Jong-soo's favorite author is. Um
Hmm
and then when he meets him and he says William Faulkner, and when Jong-soo meets Ben in the cafe, he's reading William Faulkner because he said that he wanted to read something of his after Jong-soo had mentioned his name.
hmm
So I think you can also make a few things out of that. I think it might be because he thought like Jong-soo was sort of interesting, and that's why he was like keeping him around and with his friends because he was like amusing to him and
hmm
maybe interesting to an extent. Or it's also like as a way to show that like Ben is like better or just as good because he can like or he's not accepting that Jong-soo sort of has an edge on him by having read Faulkner maybe.
Right. Well, and the next scene he kind of does though, where he's like, "Yeah, he made me feel jealousy. I've never felt that before."
That's true.
Like he's caving in a little bit.
But also he's
The
like
the
he said he never showed jealousy and sort of by just saying yeah I was jealous he's like being like yeah I'm sort of okay with that, you know.
right.
It's like
But for the context of that character, that's probably all you're going to get anyway. Like
that's
he's not
true,
really
yeah.
going to show you that.
That's true.
Yeah. Like he's the
It,
image of perfection. He's like
yeah, it's
American
like
Psycho,
the
but
only moment
Korean.
of weakness that he has in the movie. That's true.
Besides when he gets stabbed, because he
Yeah,
kind of
well,
underestimates again what Chun-Su's capable of and just stabs him.
yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Other than that, it's like no weakness, perfection, everything's perfect. American Psycho, but he's Korean kind of thing. Quite literally, because he kills people too. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Korean Psycho.
all we're missing is a scene where he peels off a face mask, and that's it.
Yeah, and oh shit.
Dropping a chainsaw down a stairwell.
No, like what do you call those cards?
What cards?
The ones with your name and number on it and your job. Fuck.
Oh, business cards.
No. Like in American Psycho,
Well, yeah,
there's
that's
this
what they
scene
are.
where they all exchange these cards, and he's like, "Oh, look at my cool golden card," and then the other one has one made out of silver or whatever.
No, yeah, business cards.
Business cards, yeah. Okay, I heard
That's what I
Christmas
said.
cards.
Well, maybe.
I mean, like they
Well,
also
it's a
have
weird
your
society.
name. I don't know.
They do.
Yeah, I was like,
And they
why
have
would
your
you say
address that you
Christmas
have to send
cards?
to someone,
Huh?
and they have like your address and your information.
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
gotta send it to someone. So yeah,
Yeah.
that works. But yeah, this is it's
Yeah,
missing
that's
that
what
scene. It's missing.
it was
It's
missing. Yeah.
missing the scene where he picks up two prostitutes and he goes to town and all he's doing is just looking at himself flexing the whole time. That seems awesome. We're missing that scene.
I think maybe we should keep this for an episode about American Psycho if we ever do one.
That one scene deserves a whole episode.
Oh my God.
It's so funny.
American Psycho is a piece of art.
It is. It is. Just when you thought Bravado couldn't get higher after like Top Gun, American Psycho comes out, and then that scene happens. It just goes to a new level. Oh man.
Okay,
Jeez.
I suppose the next episode might very well be about American Psycho. No, just kidding, because
But
it's
it's
gonna
been-
be a
well,
2010s movie. Yeah.
And I'm rewatching now. I don't know if it's gonna be Birdman. It might be something. Might be something else. I don't know. We'll see.
We don't exactly know what the next episode's gonna be just yet.
I like winging it. Winging it's the best way to go.
I like being prepared, so maybe that's a good fit. We'll see. But I think that should be it for this episode. Actually, we're almost at an hour, and
Okay.
I can't think of anything right now that I still have to say about the movie, except that it is great and it is definitely one of the best movies of the last decade.
Yeah, I give it a 4.5 out of 5.
And I gave it a 5 out of 5 actually, because I think there are in general very few movies that are as good as Burning.
Yeah, and I'm not giving it a 4.5 because there's something wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. I just factor in an enjoyment factor, and if I had Burning versus The Big Lebowski, I'm going to watch The Big Lebowski. It's not like even a question. So it's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just not as enjoyable for me as some other stuff. It's all relative.
Yeah, fair enough. Everybody likes different movies, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did I trigger you by bringing up The Big Lebowski?
I'm gonna be triggered, yeah, because that would mean I have to watch the entire thing.
I'm going to make you watch it, and you're going to like it.
I'm afraid you're gonna make me watch the entire thing. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it though, but we'll see.
Well, I
That's-
mean, you've seen it once, right?
I've seen. I don't half, maybe not quite half of it.
Oh, dude. It's a movie you got to see a couple times. And, like, the first time I saw it, I'm like, okay, that was okay. And I saw it again, and I'm like, okay, that was pretty funny. And then it just didn't leave my brain for years, and now it's one of my favorites.
No, for me, it's like it started off good with the "Where's the money, Lebowski," and then it just got worse and worse. So, but yeah,
It's just about, like, it's a slice of life thing. You're just, like,
how is it a
living
slice of life?
a week. Because you're living a week, because you haven't finished it. You're with the dude, and you're living the dude's life for a tumultuous, crazy week, and all kinds of shenanigans happen. That's Noirish too, where there's more things going on, and he gets into all kinds of different mishaps, and it's pretty loosely put together, but still like really intelligently put together at the same time. It's kind of hard to describe. Where just things happen, and it seems random, but it really isn't. That's why you got to watch it a couple times, because you're going to watch it, and
I'm just gonna say I'm not gonna watch it a couple of times. I'm gonna watch it once if we ever make an
Yeah, watch it
episode
once.
about it, and then that'll be it. But yeah, I think this will also be it for this first episode. And we'd like you to thank for listening. And hopefully,
I'm not going to tell people to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't.
No, we're not gonna do that.
I'm
Don't.
not gonna.
Don't
I'm not
like.
gonna wear myself out.
I almost said don't like, comment, and subscribe. But how about you just decide for yourself what you're gonna do?
Don't hit that little stupid bell either.
Yeah,
The little
it's
bell.
useless.
Don't hit the bell.
No bell squad. Okay, thank you for listening, and hopefully, we'll see each other next time. We'll hear each other next time.
Mhm.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.